Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about human rights and government policy.
I'd like to thank everybody so much for their attendance tonight for our third South Advocates Semiahmoo All Candidates Mixer. I'd like to start off by saying that our washrooms are in the back. Women's just past the tree. Women's are to the left and men's are to the right. And before we proceed any further, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And to get us started, I would like to introduce you our MC for the night, Mr. Alexander Dagason, who is the South Advocates Semiahmoo Mentor, currently a CLBC Strategic Initiative Advisor, and two-time TEDx presenter on what it is like to have autism. So please put your hands together and welcome Alexander Dagason.
Thank you so much. So thank you everyone again for being here. That was awesome. This is just awesome to have everyone. Thank you candidates for coming tonight. That was very awesome of you guys as well. Thank you so much. And South Advocates of Semiahmoo, thank you so much for hosting. So the South Advocates of Semiahmoo, SAS is known, makes changes through positive relationships. This focus provides the organization opportunities to engage others in our work and to collaborate on projects with the community, businesses, nonprofits, government organizations. SAS pays close attention to support on accessibility and inclusion to their community, province, and country. Tonight we ask for respect for everyone here. SAS is very interested, SAS and everyone, or else you guys wouldn't be here, is very interested to know the candidates' platform and how they plan to support our community and our country. Okay, so how the event will unfold is I will ask the candidates each a question. They will have 1 minute to answer the question. I will thank them at the end of the 1 minute. So when I say thank you guys, each candidate will be asked the same question and then I will move on to the next question. There are 9 questions in total. Don't let that intimidate you. They're not going to take too long. Then 4 SAS members will have short statements that they would like to read out, and they have prepared them for everyone to see, and they are highlights that are important issues for them in their lives. After that, we invite you to stay for some light refreshments where you can meet your candidates, socialize, reflect on the evening. Thank you again so much for being here. This is going to be an evening that is just fantastic. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, so may I please ask the candidates to introduce themselves. Carrie Ann Findlay, please start.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lynn Finley. I'm the Conservative candidate in this election. Can you stand out?
So we want to see you.
Okay. Sorry, we were told we were sitting today, so. Okay, now I'm standing. I'm Carrie Lynn Finley. I'm the Conservative candidate in this election. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening, and I look forward to the discussions and the positive approach that this whole program has brought to this. And I like Michaela's enthusiasm. That's great.
Hi everyone, my name is Beverly Pixie Hobby. Just call me Pixie tonight. And I'm your Green Party candidate in this election. And I feel greatly honored to be asked to come and talk to you this evening and answer questions about what we have planned for you.
My name is loud. My name is Gordon Hogue, and I am the say, are we supposed to say more than that? Not really, okay, that's all I got to say for now, thank you.
And hello, my name is Joel Pula, and I'm the candidate for the People's Party of Canada.
And my name is Stephen Crozier, I'm the NDP candidate, and also I have my own microphone, so it's going to have a good evening. So, thank you, it's great to have everyone here tonight, and I think we'll have a very productive session of questions and answers, so thank you.
Okay, question 2. How does your party plan to reduce the cost of living in Canada? Sure, please go first.
Is this working? Can you hear me at the back there? That's great. So 2/3 of Canadians feel that they either can't pay their bills or feel they have nothing left over at the end of the month. Almost half of all Canadian households report being less than $200 away at the end of the month from insolvency. For the first time in a decade, Canadians' net worth has declined by as much as $8,000. This is overwhelming for so many Canadians, and they've stopped saving for their retirement. We have a positive vision for Canada's economy. We will live within our means and leave more money in your pockets. We will scrap the federal carbon tax, remove the GST off home heating, make maternity and paternity benefits tax-free, provide a universal tax cut at the lowest tax bracket, make transit passes more affordable with the green tax credit for public transit use. We have a children's fitness and activity and an arts and learning tax credit. We will boost the RESP so that you can save easier for your children's education. We'll cancel $1.5 billion in corporate welfare and redirect those savings to regular Canadians. And we will provide rebates for energy-saving renovations through the Green Homes tax credit. It's about affordability, and we'll make that happen.
Thank you. The Green Party is planning to give all Canadians a guaranteed livable income, which will be calculated with reference to the cost of living of the community in which you live. We will also have universal pharmacare, so you pay for your prescriptions with your health card and not your credit card. We have a dental plan for dental care for people with low income. And then we also have a mental health and addiction services that will be covered by health care. We're going to have lower costs of electricity from an east-west energy grid powered by renewable resources. We're going to have universal child care and early learning. We're going to also remove tuition fees from trade schools, colleges, and universities, so everybody, no matter what your age is, you can have a better education, so you can get better jobs and have a more exciting life. We're going to limit credit card interest rates to no more than 10% above the prime rate of the Bank of Canada. And we're going to limit ATM transactions to only $1 per transaction. Got lots more to say, but I've had my turn.
Thank you. The Liberal Party has introduced a poverty reduction plan, and Stats Canada tells us that we've achieved our first goal within the first year of this program going into place, and it's lifted some 300,000 people out of poverty. We put in place a Canada Child Benefit Plan, and in this riding, in South Surrey White Rock, there are 1,384 children who have received $44.2 million to assist them with families in need, and that's a big difference in terms of the youth in this community. We have changed the old age security from age 67, which it was before the Liberals formed government, and we've reduced that to age 65 so that people will be able to continue to do that. And so many seniors are, when one passes away, and they lose the double income that they're getting from that. So we're putting a survivor's benefit into that to allow that to happen. There are about 3 million Canadians who do not fill their prescriptions because they cannot afford it. And that's a sad statement in terms of our health and health care that we need. So we'll put in universal. Thanks, Alex. We'll
right, so the People's Party of Canada knows that, in order to make life more affordable, we need to not make boutique tax credits and things like that that are just for a select few groups of people here and there, but to actually do a broad reform of our tax system. And in order to do that, we first need to tackle our debt. So we want to balance the budget. That's the first thing we want to do in the first 2 years of being in government. The second thing we want to do is this broad tax reform, which is to eliminate tax from $0 to 15 grand. And then from 15 grand to 100 grand would be 15%. And then 100 grand possibly 25%. Not only that, but we plan on giving a flat tax for business and farming at 10%, make it easy. And scrap the carbon tax, as well as scrap the capital gains tax. So all these things are going to put money back in the pockets of Canadians, making life more affordable. Okay, well, we're going to do all the stuff that they said. Except perhaps Joel, we have a slight difference of opinion there. I think that it's really important because everyone's going to promise you the moon, right? We have all kinds of promises, but I want to tell you why it is that the NDP promises are going to hold water, and we're going to stay with those things. And that is because right now we have a lot of corporate lobbying going on in Ottawa. So it doesn't matter what any of us say. If we don't get the corporate power out of Ottawa, nothing's going to work. So, being the party of the people, having always been the party of the people, you can depend on the NDP trying to put forward what's best for you, not what's best for the ultra-rich, and not what's best for corporations. So we have many of the same programs. Farm care is something that Tommy Douglas wanted to put into place in the 1960s. Think about money in your pocket, what would that have done? Free tuition eventually, but changing loans into grants to begin with. Canceling the interest on student debt right now. And working towards free post-secondary education. Also having public housing. And saying thank you for thanking me. Thank you.
Hi everybody, before we get in, I just wanted to let people know that there are some chairs towards the back for people that are standing up if they would like. And I just wanted to point out the forms that everybody has with the questions and candidates on them. Those are for you to keep, so if you would like to add comments for yourselves to be more informed for the vote, then that is welcome too. Thank you.
There is a few chairs up here, if you'd like to sit down. Okay, question 3. What steps is your party going to take to increase employment and business in Canada, given that small businesses are 70.5% of the population? I would like... Great, I would like you to start. We'll switch it up a little bit.
Thank you. The small business tax in Canada has been reduced from 11% down to 9%, making sure that small businesses can keep more of their money. That represents a saving for most small businesses up to $7,500 a year, which is obviously fairly significant. With respect to the employment, Canada currently has the lowest unemployment rate we've had in over 40 years. So our economy is doing reasonably well, and we have to ensure that we interpret the way the economy is performing to ensure that it provides support for those people that need it. So we're in a very good position in terms of being able to do that, which is why we can do things such as the Canada Child Benefit program that has brought the $44 million into South Surrey White to be able to do that. We have eliminated or planning to eliminate the swipe fee, which when you use a credit card, the swipe free card, that percentage will be taken off, and that across Canada represents about $500 million for small businesses as they work. Does that mean? Okay, thank you.
We'll go to the right.
Your last one.
Me next. Okay, so the Green Party will maintain the tax rate for small business at 9%. We're going to create a green venture capital fund to help new startups in the sustainable green economy, for example, in renewable energy. We're going to eliminate the need for businesses to make more than one tax filing. We're going to review all new laws and regulations to study their impact on small business, make changes if necessary. We're going to create an environmental and community service corps and give municipalities $1 billion a year to hire young people to work on environmental projects and on care projects. We're going to create community support services to provide in-home care to seniors so they can age with dignity in their homes. We're going to fund First Nation communities for stewardship programs to protect their water, soils, lands, and forests. And we're going to fund the retrofitting of residential, commercial, and institutional buildings, creating 4 million new jobs in the trades. And there's more.
Well, small business ownership is just too complicated and too expensive. Canada's Conservatives will repeal all tax increases on small business and significantly roll back regulations or red tape that makes life more difficult for those trying to make a living and grow their business. This is particularly important to me. When I was Minister of Revenue, I was awarded the Golden Scissors Award by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business for cutting red tape, so I know how to do this. The government should not stand in the way, but always stand in support of small business because of the job creation. We'll do that by repealing tax increases on small business investments, exempting spouses from tax increases on dividends, making it easier to navigate Canada's tax system, reducing federal regulations, implementing a 2-for-1 rule on new regulations, assigning a minister who reports directly to the Prime Minister on small business matters, mandating ministers and regulators to support innovation, economic growth, and global competitiveness.
I should have not said anything about having my own personal mic.
You just can't trust these politicians, they take everything from you. Okay, so, again, we're all promising all kinds of things. We will also retrofit the buildings, all the homes in Canada. That will be done by 2050. We are also, we concentrate on workers, right? We concentrate on the work that has to be done. And that's going to take a heck of a lot of work to transition from a fossil fuel-based economy to a green economy. A lot of work. That means that we have to have our unions on side. We have to have our workers on side. And that means that we need to have the NDP come into government, to have power in Ottawa. This is going to help us make this very fundamental transition that we need. We are also going to review the charges that companies charge merchants for using credit cards. We think it's really out of line with what the service actually is, the convenience of that. It's been established for a long time. That should be gone. We also want to invest in training. If we're going to improve employment, we need to have apprenticeships again. And we have to have good education for our young people. And it should be free. They shouldn't have it on their backs to pay off to private for-profit banks some $30,000. And I'm being late for that.
All right, so, yeah, exactly what Stephen said about promises. A lot of governments like to promise a lot of things. What drew me actually to the People's Party of Canada was the fact that we were implementing policy. So policy is different than promises. What we will actually do if we're elected. You can find all of our policy on our website, actually. It's all laid out there for everybody to see. We're not hiding behind any special interest groups or pulling data. It's all there. What are we doing for small business? Again, cutting taxes. There's one thing in Canada called interprovincial trade barriers. So these are taxes that are across our own provinces. And sometimes, like in British Columbia, it's cheaper for businesses to take that business out of the country, whether it be the United States or somewhere else. It's estimated there's $100 billion of lost revenues to Canada which is very sad. And I think it would be great to see some of that money kept here in Canada, and of course would affect small businesses completely. Simplify and lower the taxes for businesses, make it fair for everybody, so everybody's on the same page. That's what we're going to do.
Alrighty. Okay, so this will be, first we'll go to Stephen, and then we'll go down the line. Alright. How is your party going to provide more affordable, all accessible housing in Canada?
They took my mic again.
I can't blame them, I guess. Okay, so again, we're going to publicly fund housing, and this is really important because since the 1990s, the government has been out of public funded housing, and this has really contributed to the problems that we have today with our housing, the crisis, in fact. So we're going to build 500,000 new homes across Canada. And some people say, well, how can you do that? You take a look at the BC Liberal, the BC Works Board, what has become the BC NDP party. They've actually built 21,000 units in under 2 years. And we're basically going to take that federally and do that right across the country. We're in a housing crisis and we need affordable housing. Affordable also does not mean that you go to a private developer and have them put a few rentals in so that people can almost afford to pay the rents. You have to have a purpose of building houses for people. Thank you.
So, the People's Party of Canada recognizes that we're a federal government, and the federal government's role is not to get into issues that are roles that are responsible for the provincial government. So the provincial government is actually responsible for housing. So the more that the federal government tries to meddle into the provincial government's jurisdiction, it's just creating more confusion. So the federal government's role is to support the provincial government and allow them to carry forward. Kudos to the BC NDPs for building what they've done, and keep it going there. As in, keeping our rules defined.
I believe that housing has to be engaging both community groups, local government, provincial government, and the federal government. None of us has the expertise, but all of us working collaboratively and coordinated can address those issues much more effectively. To that end, we've introduced the first national housing strategy, and it is a 10-year program with $40 billion in it, and it is making a difference, and people are utilizing it today. We've had development of one rental building that's starting in this area. It's the second rental building we've had in 30 years, which is sadly to the affordability of the area. $2.2 billion within that are set aside to reduce chronic homelessness, and we've set a goal of being able to reduce that by 50% within 10 years. And again, the community-oriented and related strategies are the strongest and most effective. And I could give an example of the Chorus building just south of here, which is, saying a minute's up or saying Chorus is free. Okay. Thank you.
So the guaranteed livable income that everybody will get with the Green Party is going to help with helping everybody afford housing. We're also going to make housing an eligible infrastructure so it can be funded by the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We're going to provide direct funding to non-profits and co-ops for housing for seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income families. We're going to refocus the mandate of the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation so it's focused on non-market affordable and co-op housing, and we're going to increase the National Housing Co-Investment Fund and the Canada Housing Benefit We're going to build programs that pair students and other young people with seniors who are living alone and need help in the home as well as companionship. And we're going to make it more difficult for foreign buyers to purchase big, beautiful homes and leave them empty. And that's it.
I have one. Give that back to Stephen, because he wants this is an area where the federal government has to work with municipal and provincial and community partners. I've shown in the past that I can do that, and I will do it again. When it comes to housing affordability, a new Conservative government under Andrew Scheer is committed to helping those who want to buy a home. The Canadian Real Estate Association has endorsed our plan. The dream of home ownership for many seems basically like a harder and harder to reach moving target. New data shows the country's youngest buyers are affected the most. A Conservative government will work together to knock down regulatory barriers that discourage new home construction so more homes can come in the market, including rental housing at lower prices. We will make surplus federal real estate available for development to increase the supply of housing. That housing stock can be ownership or rental, but of course should always take into account accessibility. Fix the mortgage stress test to ensure that first-time home buyers aren't unnecessarily prevented from getting mortgages or changing their mortgage. And launch an inquiry into money laundering. Thank you.
All right, next question. What are you going to do to ensure that people with disabilities and seniors receive the necessary health care in Canada for their complex needs? All right, we're going to go Pixie, and then we're going Corey, and then the rest going all the way, and then you will be, we're going to go Pixie, and then we're going to go Carrie, and then to the end, and then yes. Okay.
Did you read the question, or am I spaced out here? Oh, good, okay. Okay, so the first thing we would do to ensure that seniors and people with disabilities receive health care for complex needs is to hold regular meetings with seniors and seniors advocates and people with disabilities and their advocates as well to learn more about their various challenges and needs. And then we will follow up those discussions to determine how successful any programs that have been implemented, if they're actually working or not. Some of them may need to be adjusted. And with these representatives, we will prepare practical strategies to achieve the goals that are set by the groups. They will be done in a reasonable time frame. And our healthcare system will be expanded to include pharmacare, dental care, and mental health services, as well as addiction services. And hopefully, eventually, we'll be able to take care of people that have rare diseases as well. So we have to expand our scope more. Sorry. I'm doing a little bit of a dipsy doodle here. Okay. As long as you keep going. It is obviously important that all Canadians, including persons with disabilities and seniors, have access to necessary health care. Here are a few things we will do. As you know, the federal government transfers money to the provinces who are responsible for health care delivery. Our health and social program guaranteed to maintain and increase these transfers by at least 3% every year. In 2019-2020, the two transfers are providing $55 billion. Under a new Conservative government, Canadians will be able to count on stable and predictable health and social program funding in every province. It's critical for Canadians to have confidence in that. And a new Conservative government will also introduce the Fairness for Persons with Disabilities Act. This new act will reduce the number of hours spent per week on life-sustaining therapy needed to qualify for the credit from 14 to 10. This will allow 35,000 more Canadians with disabilities the opportunity to access savings of up to about $2,100 a year. We will also support Canadians with disabilities in ways that leaves more money in their pocket to manage their health needs. We also have a national autism strategy.
Okay, so, I'll go back to the head-to-toe pharmacare. We're the only country that has universal health care that does not have universal pharmacare. Whenever you hear people say about putting money in the pockets of Canadians, just try and imagine over the last 5 decades how much money that would have put in the pockets of Canadians. I think whenever we're looking to transfers to provinces, we have to look at the cuts that have been made in the past and how those have not been reestablished, that we have not brought up the healthcare, the education funding that has been necessary. I think that we also have to look at, we're going to have a national seniors strategy, so that's something that's going to be helping some of the older, some of our elderly Canadians. And looking at home care, long-term care, we also have to look at appropriate housing and housing that is going to have the appropriate supports for people who need those, who have the special health needs. Further to that, yes, my timing was really good there, I think.
So from 2006 roughly till now, we've seen doubling of the money transferred from the federal government to the province from $20 billion to $40 billion, and not really much good to show for it. We still have incredibly long wait times, and we want to see that change. We want to see it become a better system, and the way we do that is by giving the provinces the money to start with, not taking it away and then giving it back, but giving them the money to start with, and then allowing provinces the opportunity to then implement reforms in line with a more productive system in the province itself. Canada is the only country in the OECD countries that have a monopoly, government monopoly on Medicare. So opening that system up to have private initiatives as well would make it become more competitive and allow for less wait times and better care for all individuals involved.
Well, the issue of disabilities is a significant issue and a growing issue for us. There are approximately 4 million Canadians now who have disabilities, and it is anticipated that by the year 2030, that will grow to 9 million. And a lot of those are a product of aging and what happens as we get older and the challenges that come with that. So it's a significant burden that is facing us as a society, and we have to be ever cognizant of the way to respond to that. So as pharmacare has been mentioned, and certainly moving into a pharmacare system that will be coordinated with the provinces is an important step forward in terms of that. When I was with the provincial government, we started tendering the cost of drugs for generic drugs, and we were able to bring down the cost of drugs in British Columbia by 30%. If we do that on a national basis, we're going to have a much more significant ability to respond to and have a system of pharmacare that will tie with our Medicare system, our public health system. In terms of looking at disabilities and the issues around that, I've submitted a proposal with respect to a plan for dealing with autism as we develop our dementia plan. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so for just time and continuity purposes, we're just going to go you and all of that line, just so that it's easier. I hope that's okay with you guys. Okay, what steps in your party taking to support climate change in Canada?
Well, basically, Canada's concern is to believe in technology, not taxes. We don't believe a carbon tax, a federal carbon tax, because it makes virtually no contribution to the global fight against climate change. It only makes life more expensive for ordinary Canadians and small businesses. We should all be concerned about the kind of planet we want to leave for future generations. We have a real plan to protect our environment, and it's built on 3 guiding principles: green technology, not taxes; a cleaner and greener natural environment; and taking the climate fight global. This plan is the most comprehensive environmental plan ever put forward by a political party in Canada. It is specific, realistic, and achievable with its policy commitments. It's on conservative.ca. It is about 60 pages long. Under the conservative plan, it will not be free to pollute. There will be no sweetheart deals for anybody. Rather than paying a tax to the government, heavy emitters will be required to invest in technology that will lower emissions. We can actually create more jobs in Canada through technological growth. There's so much more to say, and I have no more time. Read the 60 pages.
Okay, here goes. The Green Party plans to work across party lines with all other political parties to work on climate change. The first thing we're going to do is set stricter targets. We have to reduce the greenhouse gases by 60% by 2030, and we have a plan to do it. We're going to have a carbon tax, but it will be revenue neutral. In other words, the money that's collected from the big polluters will come back to Canadians in our pockets. We're going to focus on renewable energy. There'll be no more fossil fuel projects. We're going to cancel the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline, and we're going to end all subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, which will save $3.3 billion per year. We're going to move towards a 100% renewable electricity grid across Canada by 2030, and it will be powered by renewable sources. We're going to have biofuel made from organic waste for heavy equipment that can't run on electrical batteries and things of that nature. And we're going to have a tree planting program, 300,000 hectares of trees every year. And that's not all. I ran out of time.
In 2008, I was part of the cabinet in British Columbia that introduced the first climate change plan in North America. And it was a revenue neutral model, and it was a carbon tax in it. And a lot of the naysayers were saying this was going to hurt the economy. The economy was going to slow down, and that didn't happen. The economy grew in British Columbia, and British Columbia became one of the stellar models for all of North America in terms of addressing the issue of climate change. Again, revenue neutral and improve the economy. We are abiding by the Paris Accord in terms of being able to address the greenhouse gas by 2030, reducing by 60%, and by 2050 getting to a net zero. And carbon tax is the only way we're going to be able to achieve that. And the experiences in Australia have proven that over and over again, where they had a carbon tax and the greenhouse gases were reduced, they took it off, and they increased dramatically. They put it back on and it changed again. If we want to have a climate and a world for our children and grandchildren, we're going to have to take action to respond to that need.
Okay, so we don't believe that we don't believe in climate alarmism, I should say, that the fact that the world is drastically going to change in the next 4 years if no action is taken. We understand that the climate has changed, as always has changed. Where we're standing right now is once covered by ice, and now it's not. We live here, and it's a great place to live. We also understand that Canada is only responsible for less than 2% of the global emissions. And if we really want to make a dent in the world in terms of fighting pollution, which is really what the problem is pollution, then we need to be leaders in advancement of technologies that can either clean up the world, like there's now technologies that can capture the emissions and inject it into concrete, makes a stronger concrete. That's a Canadian company that's doing that. So it's a great solution that's been implemented by the private sector. More taxes, carbon taxes, things of this nature. Maybe they were to bring greenhouse gases down. I haven't seen that study, but what we want to do is tackle the issue of pollution. Pollution is the real problem, and we need to tackle that.
You might see a bit of a contrast between myself and my colleague here, Joel. We actually believe both in technology and taxes. I don't think that carbon tax seems to have worked, and we are not against it. One of the problems, though, is that the biggest polluters are not being taxed. and this is something that we have to change. Companies should be responsible for the pollution that they cause. They should be cleaning up the tailing ponds and different things whenever they're doing mining. That's their responsibility. It shouldn't be the public responsibility whenever they're making profits on Canadian minerals and resources. One thing that I was going to say, because too often what happens is we give corporations carrots, hoping that they will be good to us, hoping that they will develop technology. Basically, they eat the carrots and they take a stick out on us. And I think that we have to start changing the way that we treat corporations. And my goodness, I can't believe that was a minute. Okay. A minute and one? It was too kind, I appreciate it.
Given the debt is $40,764 per person in Canada, what are you going to do to manage spending and reduce the debt in Canada for future generations?
Thank you. Well, by the end of this year, Canada will have added $71 billion to the national debt. In fact, the numbers I've seen say that the share for each Canadian family is more like $50,000 per household. The cost of servicing that debt will rise 40% to $34 billion in just a few years. Runaway deficits with no plan to balance can only mean one of two things: a future tax increase or future cuts in social programs like health care. The Conservative government will serve to eliminate the deficit, pay down the debt. The good news is we have an opportunity to do that. We'll live within our means. Families have to. Government should too. Any new spending not already budgeted for must be paid by savings through the government. Your bank account is not a bottomless pit, and neither is the taxpayer's pocket. This approach will not affect Canada child benefits, senior benefits, or transfers to province. Drastic spending cuts aren't necessary to balance the budget, just being responsible and accountable.
Despite our ambitious climate emergency action plan and our plan to strengthen Canada's social safety net, the Green Party plans to balance the budget by the end of 2024. This will be done by stopping fossil fuel subsidies, saving $3.3 billion per year, canceling the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project, saving $10 to $13 billion, closing tax loopholes for the wealthy, ending offshore tax dodging schemes by providing resources to the Canada Revenue Agency, taxing commercial bank profits at 5%, taxing transnational e-commerce companies like Google, Netflix, and Facebook, and raising the tax rate for big corporations, large corporations, from 15% up to 21%, so that we're pretty much on the same level as the U.S. And with all those things, we will be living responsibly, and we will have a balanced budget by 2024. Thanks.
Thank you. Debt, like we're paying a mortgage, has to be seen in the context of the economy and as a percentage of our gross domestic product. And according to the International Monetary Fund and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 countries. It's about 30%. Germany is at 45%. The U.S. is at 80%. Japan is at 150%. We're in pretty darn good shape when you compare it within that context. And successive Liberal governments, if you look at governments over the past 20 years, Liberal governments have had fewer deficits and have accumulated less debt than any other governments we've had in Canada over that period of time. And I think we have to diligently keep track of our expenditures, but we also have to ensure that we're able to provide services. So we're in a good position from a fiscal perspective to be able to provide those services which are so important the livability and inclusivity of our country.
So, as we all know now, budgets do not balance themselves. 4 years and $75 billion added to the deficit. Something needs to be done. So, the People's Party of Canada knows this and understands this, and we plan on balancing the budget in 2 years. The Conservatives are saying, and they're talking about balancing the budget in 5 years. A term is only 4 years, so I don't know about that promise. 7 billion. So our actually tax system is so complicated that it's costing the government $7 billion a year just to keep that in line. That's over $500 a household in Canada. Again, like I talked about earlier tonight, we're going to simplify the tax system. 3 brackets and easy to manage. So we're going to balance the budget in 2 years through a few things. So first thing is cutting corporate welfare altogether. Corporations don't need all taxpayer dollars to live or to be alive. And if the corporation can't cut it, then they can't cut it. We're also going to eliminate foreign aid while we're trying to get our taxes together. Budget together, I should say.
Okay, so, well, I'm going to start off by just saying, like, Marty is right, things could be worse. And we're not being really that unreasonably fiscally irresponsible, I don't think. But the reason why we have a debt and deficit to begin with is because there hasn't been the courage to lay the taxes on the corporations and on the ultra wealthy that would create a fair tax system. That's really our problem. And we've had actually, I think Greta Thunberg is quite correct when she says our house is on fire, and our house is on fire. We've got 11 years. We shouldn't be looking at cutting services and cutting our expenditures. It's going to take a lot of money to make the change that we have to make in order to survive as a species. So what we have to do is tax the ultra wealthy and corporations appropriately, not you folks.
Thank you very much. Just as a reminder to everybody is that we want you to highlight your own parties and just highlight what is your own party. Thank you. How does your party plan to support and develop transportation and infrastructure that meets universal access in Canada?
I started last time. You want to move over one?
I can do that. I'm happy to do that. So, the Green Party has a plan for a new transportation system all across the country. It will be based around passenger rail, high speed, that will go in between the provinces and will also connect to local or urban transit by light rail and electric buses. And transportation will be more efficient, it will be run on renewable energy, and it will be priced reasonably. And because transportation is an area that falls within federal jurisdiction, it's covered by the new Accessible Canada Act. And this means that regulations can be enacted under that act to ensure that all modes of transportation that connect to the interurban and interprovincial transportation networks have to meet the standards of accessibility. And that policies that guide the regulations and the regulations themselves must be led by people that have disabilities so we get it right. Those are the people that know what's needed, and they should lead the whole process. Thank you.
I had the privilege of sitting on the FEMA committee that dealt with the act that we're making reference to. And it was an honor to sit there and have so many people come before us and talk about the issues of accessibility across Canada and the ways that our act could go And the act is about access, it's about accessibility, it's not about disability, so making sure that we all have ability to follow the principles of dignity and equal opportunity and a barrier-free government, of autonomy, inclusive design, and meaningful involvement. And the 3 provinces, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and Manitoba, have complementary legislation that assists in that. And Canadian law means that all services provided by the federal jurisdiction, that includes airlines and trains and recreational buses and banks and telecommunications and services and federal governments have offered and must have accessible and inclusive access for all Canadians. For all Canadians. Thank you.
Currently, Canada spends about $6 billion abroad building roads and infrastructure, and we know that some of our own infrastructure here is really old and failing. I mean, we have the George Massey Tunnel, and we also have the Ironworkers Bridge that is really old and needs replacement. So what the People's Party wants to do is bring some of that money back home to deal with our issues here at home first before going abroad and helping other nations. Of course, we like to help. We're a generous country. We've always been a generous country, but we need to understand that there are priorities too, and our citizens that are actually paying the taxes deserve to have that tax money come home to fix the issues that we have here at home first, and then we can go abroad.
Okay, so one of the things that I found out whenever I went to the BC Transit Commission is that actually for transit commissions, what's happening is that they have to apply for grants. And so this is one of the reasons why our extension to the SkyTrain is ending up in Fleetwood, which makes absolutely no sense. It should go on to Langley if that's what they're going to do. But because they changed the way in which they were going to spend those funds, they can only get as far as Fleetwood. Makes no sense. And NDP, as far as I know, as far as the BC Transit Commission knows, is the only party that is going to provide stable funding for public transit. And this is going to happen. It's going to allow transit commissions to plan ahead. They'll know that the money is going to be there. And they told me at the meeting that I had with them that had they known, they could put into place the extension all the way to Langley, because they could depend on that money coming in. And it would be much more economically efficient for them to do that. The other thing too is to work with transit commissions and municipalities to make transit free. Thank you.
Well, one announcement that we've already made that is particularly important to our community is that the Conservatives are committed to funding the Massey Tunnel replacement. Residents here in South Surrey White Rock are frankly sick of being stuck in tunnel traffic, whether it's in a vehicle or in public transit. So this commitment will ensure that that project gets completed. Whether it's a tunnel or a bridge, we're not sure yet, but we're in favor of it. And we will ensure that all infrastructure projects that have already been committed to will move forward. Here in Surrey, I will champion the SkyTrain extension from Surrey to Langley, out to the Langley Event Centre, and then from that transportation spine down into South Surrey. Going forward, a new Conservative government will have a strategy in place to prioritize future transportation projects on whether they lower commute times and provide more housing options for Canadians. And of course, all transportation and all new buildings should meet universal access standards. Very important.
Given the Accessibility Act, what changes is your party proposing to improve accessibility and inclusive in Canada? Sure, yes.
Well, I highlighted some of the values that are reflected in the Act, in the Accessibility Act. And now we have to ensure that those values are reflected in the policies and practices that are developed across our country. And that's an important stage of the consultation, which has been referenced so often. It has to involve local government, it has to involve organizations such as Semiahmoo House, it has to involve the province, and it has to involve the federal government in putting that together. We have, as part of the consultation process in the committee stage of this act, we received a report from a preeminent lawyer in Ontario, a brilliant lawyer. We read the report, and we decided we wanted to have him come before us. And he came before us, and he came in a wheelchair, and he was blind. And his insights into accessibility were not just intellectual, but they were visceral. He was able to connect with us in such an incredibly powerful way. And some of the assumptions that people on the committees were making about this gentleman were blown away when he came before us and was able to tell about what he'd been through to get his law degree, to practice law, and to be involved in the development of the act. It made a big difference. We have a consultant on that.
So we don't have a direct policy yet to help those struggling with accessibility, but we have 4 tenets in the People's Party of Canada, and it's freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect. And fairness is for all Canadians. So, it's important to us that all Canadians are heard and that we implement policy that will be in line with helping all Canadians navigate this world in a fair way. So increasing accessibility is certainly a challenge for many Canadians, and we want to make sure that, especially as our older generations are having more and more difficult navigating the world, we want to make sure that we can help those people. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, so when I read this question, it reminded me of the time when I was in university, and in fact for 2 years in a row, I worked with others with disabilities on accessibility issues in Toronto, and making recommendations to governments on that. I think it's a really good initiative, but as Roy was saying, this has to be implemented at different levels of government and also in the private sector. These things have to be encouraged. We have to recognize that whatever the disabilities, the abilities are the things that should be recognized, and this is what we have to move towards. And in order to do that, we have to remove barriers. Some of those are really kind of mental barriers that some of us have. We don't have a very good understanding of the abilities of a lot of different people and different groups. We do have a few things that we talked about reviewing long-term security programs so that it will serve people better. Thank you.
Well, it's so very important that the federal government show leadership on making Canada more accessible. For 5 years, I sat in the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal as a judge, and I decided many cases on accessibility in buildings, airlines, for instance. I'm also the treasurer of the BC and Alberta Guide Dogs. We provide service dogs for the blind, for children with autism, and for veterans with PTSD. It's important to be part of these kinds of initiatives at a community level and then have those partnerships with the federal government. The app will help to create a barrier-free Canada by identifying, removing, and preventing barriers to accessibility. That's great. Now that the legislation is in place, we must work to ensure that it doesn't get bogged down in red tape and use the tools at hand to make significant improvements in the lives of people with disabilities across Canada. My friends Rick Hansen and before him Terry Fox, others have shown the way to the world in terms of leadership on these issues. I'm certainly committed, Canada's Conservatives are committed to Canada continuing to lead.
Thank you. One of the fundamental principles of the Green Party is respect for diversity, and this means respect for people with different capabilities. And that's why the Green Party is committing to providing direct funding to nonprofit organizations and co-ops to restore and build quality housing for people with disabilities, seniors, and families on low incomes. The Greens are also, as I mentioned, going to establish a cross-Canada transportation system focused around a rail line, a light rail, and electric buses. and that the new Accessible Canada Act and the regulations will apply to the entire system so that all aspects of the system are inclusive. The Green Party will also create a municipal fund and double the current funding from gas taxes. And this, coupled with our promise to allocate 1% of all GST to municipalities for infrastructure projects, will enable municipalities to adapt new infrastructure to make it inclusive and to design all new infrastructure so it's inclusive. Much like that new children's program that is, the new children's playground that has opened up in Surrey, and also to retrofit existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, what are things that you are going to advocate most in our community, in your community, if you have the privilege to serve us in Ottawa?
Right. So when I got into this, we put a website together and we put an email out, and I thought I knew, some of the issues that we face as a community, but I was blown away by the amount of emails I started getting from people that had different, that were advocating for different groups and different issues and things that I never even thought of myself personally. And it blew me away a little bit. So, if I'm elected MP, I want to make sure that everybody's heard, and I want to make sure that I work my hardest in order to help solve some of these issues that we're facing in the community. I don't take this lightly. I understand that this would be a very intense job for a lot of people and a lot of different demands. But my promises to you is that I will keep working my hardest in order to solve as many of these problems that we face as a community, and work together in order to do that.
So there are many things, but I think that it's not primarily in our area here. We have a problem with affordability, in particular affordable housing. And affordability can be thrown around and not really mean very much. Whenever you're renting a basement apartment in White Rock or South Surrey, it's costing you between $1,200 and $1,500 a month, that's not affordable. So we truly need public investment in housing. And the other thing that I think we're facing here is a problem for public transit. We do not have enough public transit, especially within South Surrey, White Rock, and whenever you consider the number of people that are moving here and the expansion of the population. So we really have to do something about that. That is not a federal issue necessarily, but it's something that we should be working with our municipalities and the BC transit system to make sure that we're well served. Healthcare, of course, we've got farm care for all, dental care, home care, all of these things are going to help with affordability. And finally, affordable education. Thank you very much.
Well, I've been talking to members of the community for months now at the doorsteps, and I have to say it seems the overriding issue is affordability. Housing, public transit, health care, these are all important and play into that affordability. That's why it's so important to me that the Conservative Party has a clear path to make life more affordable for everyone. Initiatives like the universal tax cut, that makes a difference across the board, especially for low and medium income earners, for families with kids, young people starting out, seniors, new immigrants, people with disabilities will all benefit. As you know, less than 60% of adults with disabilities have jobs, and persons with disabilities make 12 to 51% less than others and are more likely to live in poverty. That is simply unacceptable. This is why it's so important for government to work to make life more affordable for everyone, especially those who will benefit the most. We want an all-inclusive society in Canada where everyone contributes, everyone is valued, and everyone can get ahead. Thank you.
The areas that I would focus on would be expanding healthcare to make sure that it includes treatments and special services for people with complex healthcare needs. I would also make sure that we have dedicated funding for housing first projects to house homeless people. The other thing I'd be interested in is making sure that the municipalities receive a greater percentage of the tax dollar, because municipalities bear the brunt of all the infrastructure work that has to be done, and they have the least amount of money to do it. I would also focus on climate change mitigation projects to help our area, such as to protect the Semiahmoo First Nation lands from flooding, and to protect the lands in Surrey along the Nicomeco and Serpentine rivers and in Crescent Beach from flooding. And also the transit situation has to be improved a lot to make sure that we are getting away from cars and take transit, and it's reliable and it's affordable. Thank you.
When I was elected, went to Ottawa 18 months ago, I made a list of 11 issues that I wanted to work on. And those issues were driven by values that I believe are the values of our community and the values of Canadians. And those values are values of inclusivity, of support, of helping those who need support and they're in their time of need. So some of the issues that still are before me, and some new ones, I've accomplished a few of them. Inclusive housing, looking at, so something I worked on immediately is peninsula estates, but when I was part of provincial government, CMHC had peninsula estates, and they gave it to the province. We were able to give it to Semiahmoo House, and we've now given $50,000 to them to look at how they can build that and build an inclusive, affordable housing. There's also 400 acres the federal government owns in this riding on 192, and I think that should be, my opinion, should be developed something like Randall Island, where you can have governance model that allow us to work in many fashions. Railway safety, it still bothers me that we've got coal trains going through our city and the issues around that. I think we should have an environmental reserve. The little Camel River right up to the Langley border should be protected. We should have, the Boundary Bay is the most important birding area, one of the most important in North America, and environmentally we have to look at it, address that as well. The climate change, which we already talked about. The issues of special needs and autism, being able to work and find models to get those included effectively within the healthcare system. Semiahmoo First Nation and getting water and clean water, and I'm finished. Thanks, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidates. That was really insightful. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and thank you for SAS for hosting us again. Members would like to do a very, very short speech. The whole thing will take 10 minutes, so. And then it's coffee and Timbits and all that other good stuff. Okay, so we're going to invite the candidates to replace these guys, and these guys are going to replace the candidates. It'll be very quick.
to be a part of such a good community of people. And I think it would be great if many others have the same opportunity. Please think about how you can bring good employers to our area. Thank you and have a great evening.
Alexa, you go next, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexa Leopold. Thank you for joining us this evening. I would like to speak to you about transportation. I like to take the bus, and I feel more independently when I get to go out with my friends on my own. It is important for all people in the community to feel safe and have the freedom to go wherever they need to go. I would like to offer all people who walking the sidewalks or crossing the street day or night to feel safe. This is an important part of talking transit. You have to feel safe, but keep in mind when you make changes to transit, I would like for it to transportation routes that go downtown were easier. There are a lot of transportations, and when I go out with my girlfriends, I don't feel safe. I think more express routes, not just for me, but for all people would like things better. Transportation is important for freedom for all people that should always be affordable. Thank you. Have a great night.
And we'll have Krista next.
Good evening. My name is Krista Mills, and I am a member of the South Advocates of Semiahmoo. I would like to talk to you today about housing and what it means to me. I am one of the 20 people who has the opportunity to live at Chorus Apartments. Chorus Apartments is considered affordable housing. I would not be able to afford this apartment if it was not affordable. Living on my own was a big, huge dream of mine, and I am glad I accomplished it. This has been great for me, and I hope in the future it can be the same for others. I like cooking in the comfort of my own apartment. It is close by to Prince Village, where I do my shopping. My neighborhood is close to everything I need, like theater, bus stops, walk to Walmart sometimes, and restaurants. I enjoy visiting my neighbors and friends
parties and get together and have fun. I feel I have grown since being on my own and become more independent and responsible. I feel safe. Affordable housing is important to my life, and I believe that everyone should have the same opportunity to live an independent life. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the All Candidates Mixer. My name is Madison Van Owen. I am a sub-advocate of Semiahmoo member and Semiahmoo House board member. Today I want to share what is important to me in my community. I have been living on my own for the past 8 years in my own condo. Affordable housing options are challenging to find. Living on my own has allowed me to be independent. Having an accessible community is important to me. Being able to get around in my community means that I am seeing people that I know and doing things with my friends and family. I enjoy going out to the movies with friends, to the beach and parks. As a staff member, I enjoy doing a lot of things to help the community. I am passionate about accessibility and inclusion. Without access to my community, I cannot go out to enjoy the pleasures of life. I want all Canadians to enjoy the fun and I get to have and enjoy the life that I get to live, the good life that I live. I believe that being an MP might be like being a board member. It is hard work and also a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience. Now, I will please ask people to be patient so then we can move the table or the chairs to the side so then we can have more.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.